Welcome to Two Gray Beards. This is a program that will help you have good conversations with your financial advisor and hopefully give you ideas on how to make sure your portfolio is something you're comfortable with.
So, what happened this week? It was a bit of a snooze fest, really, wasn't it, Andy?
It sure was. We started the week with some great expectations of the potential move that the Bank of Japan might do. And what they did was they didn't do anything. They didn't change policy at all.
Yeah, I really expected them to do nothing, maybe some tweak to whether they were going to do yield curve control on fives or tens, but in the end, they did absolutely nothing. And the market reacted to it by buying everything initially and then selling off everything afterwards and then closing the week. Both bonds and stocks almost unchanged, right? I certainly don't see anything that we've learned this week, neither from the Fed speakers nor from data that came out, that would challenge our view that the Fed is going to do 25 basis points and that is more or less cemented and that the market is priced for it and waiting for it.
Yeah, and the only thing I'd add is there were some treasury bond auctions over the last 2 weeks. Those were very well received by the market. Clearly, a lot of buying demand in treasuries, but again, the market still closed down. So good auctions, but still nowhere. And then one other thing, and I think for the people at home watching this, you've seen a lot of news this week, and you will see news every week until it's resolved about the potential government shutdown and the default on the US government debt or on payments to those receiving Social Security or those receiving Medicaid benefits, military employees, all those sort of things. And this week was really the first time that you heard it in the national media. And what I'd like to say is this is not an issue yet. At some point, it looks like, based on our estimates of exactly how the government is going to finance itself, issue bonds, pay off its people, it's going to happen in June. And there's no incentive whatsoever for the government, the Republican House, and the Democratic administration and Senate to reach agreement on this topic because the drama allows them to achieve political ends.
I agree. It's going to be a whole load of noise between now and June, and the market effect is going to be very, very muted if there is any. So Our advice really is don't even think about it for the time being. It's going to be a long time until this is a bothersome issue for the market.
Right. And on a personal level, you're going to get your checks. You're going to get your Social Security. You're going to get your Medicare benefits. You're going to get your employment paychecks without doubt, at least through June. And then it would be very unlikely if it affects your life ever. Okay, so that's what happened last week, which was mostly nothing. What's going to happen this week, Nick?
I think more of the same. We have very little forward-looking data. We only have PCE at the end of the week, and the Fed goes into lockdown, so they're not going to, or blackout, whatever you call it, so they're not going to speak. 25 looks like cemented. Every speaker that came out this week more or less said the same thing. So I can't see that the market is going to react very strongly next week because we don't have anything to react to unless PCE is a big surprise.
Right. I'll note a couple of things along with that, which is you're going to get $115 billion of 2-year notes, 5-year notes, and 7-year notes, which is on the front end of the yield curve where our IEF is located. But the auctions, and that's quite a bit of supply. But the auctions have been very well subscribed. And so we'll pay attention to that and comment on it in the next video. But that supply is coming to market. Again, we don't think it's a big deal, but it is happening. And then, of course, if you're watching, and hopefully you don't, but if you're watching CNBC or some of the other faster money podcasts, it's going to be all about earnings next week. What I'd say is what we do with earnings is we step back and see what the overall trends are, not the idiosyncratic event for each stock. And most importantly, the stocks that are reporting earnings that are the big market movers aren't until the following week.
Absolutely. So I think that we can both agree that we're going to do nothing with the portfolio because we see absolutely no reason. We have seen no data. We have seen no reason to change the allocations we currently have.
Yeah, the Fed's going to do 25. The economy may or may not be weakening. It looks like it's weakening, but certain aspects of the market of the economy aren't weakening. And as the Fed is, we are data dependent, and we're not seeing a big change in the potential outcomes of this economy or this market.
And as such, there is absolutely no reason to change our allocations or do anything until we have some more precise data and we can look forward to some events happening. So what we'll do is we'll talk about what we think the Fed's going to do and what the market reaction is going to be in next week's video. And then we'll most probably do an emergency, or whatever you like to call it, video the day of the Fed after the markets close so we can go through it and explain it to you. Well, the portfolio is going to be short and sweet because actually nothing's really changed. As promised last week, I sold some TLT calls, struck at 110, and I sold the 101 calls in IEF. I did them as market almost on Monday. I didn't really feel like finessing it because it's such a small amount of dollars that it's really not worth it. But the whole point of the options is to teach you about levels, because the strike is the most important thing, and also the length, the expiry of the option. You should always want to have the expiry of the option before a major event, and that is the Fed. That's why we chose the Jan 27 expiry as opposed to an expiry a few days later when the Fed meeting occurs. So we made a little bit of money to enhance things, but it's really nothing. Our performance is very much in line with a 60-40 portfolio. We really don't have any meaningful change over the course of the week, and we have decided really not to change the portfolio at all, as you have heard. And therefore, the only order we still have is the SPY order where we're selling at 412. That is nowhere near to be filled. If it is filled next week, that's great. We'll leave it, but we'll most probably cancel it ahead of the Fed because there's no point in holding it. As they say, it's always the same. It either doesn't get anywhere near it, in which case why have the order, or you don't want to sell it anymore because the Fed's done something that nobody expected. So we will cancel it next week, but in the meantime, that is it. The final thing I would like to make you aware of is that in this tab here, and in reply to the many questions we've had on the subject, I have the various charts of all the instruments that are in the portfolio that we might have talked about. And basically you just go to this watch list and then you can input all my levels and so on. But that is for the future. I just have it there so you are aware of it. And if you're interested in charting, I have included a list of books here and my favorite book on charting, which is quite easy. I'm not a huge chartist, and I don't believe in it as some people believe in the Bible. I think it's very useful for finding inflection points where that strike in the option might be very interesting. And for people who are interested in options and haven't traded them before, I've included a whole 5 books which are quite heavy, and that's why I think that this book at the bottom is going to be a very good introduction. And then if you want to go more in depth on the subject of options, the other 5 would probably be much better. But that is a great starter, and I would have thought that anyone interested in learning anything at all about trading options should start there.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week, and we'll have our emergency meeting after the video after the Fed. Have a good week.
Have a wonderful week.